Hello, everyone. This is Mirkala Wozniak. If you didn't hear the earlier announcement, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 5:02. I'm first going to go ahead and bring on Molly for a moment to introduce herself onto screen. And then after we get started, I'll take her off screen. Just a couple of reminders. If you do have a question, please go ahead and drop it in the Q&A functionality, and we'll make sure to get to that question. Please include your name when you do so. And then a couple of other reminders. We still have tours coming up next Wednesday and the following Monday, November 3rd, and there's space in all those tours still, so we encourage you to come in and see the process firsthand. And we'll go ahead and get started. Let me bring on Molly. Just give me one sec.
Mirkala, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
Go
great.
ahead.
Yep. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Molly Fitzpatrick. I'm the Boulder County Clerk and Recorder. Happy election season. We know there's a lot going on, so we appreciate your interest in this presentation. So today we will be going over election security, some election statistics, ballot processing FAQs, and just general election FAQs. So we'll be covering a lot, but we want to make sure that there's plenty of time at the end for questions. So if you have any more questions after any of these slides, just know that there will be plenty of time at the end. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and jump off camera and we'll get started. The first slide, and there sometimes is a little bit of a delay, but the first slide that we'll talk about is who's voting in Boulder County. So this slide represents our voter registration statistics. Right now, we have 242,000 active registered voters. That's of the first of this month, which is quite an increase from where we were just about 10 or so years ago, from 184, which really represents or is a good visual of the growth of the county as well as the entire state. You can see that the majority of voters in Boulder County are unaffiliated. I think that is an interesting statistic. A lot of folks don't realize that we're majority unaffiliated, followed by the Democratic Party and then the Republican Party. And the next slide represents where are our voters. A lot of folks might have a misconception that the vast majority or the majority of voters in the county are in Boulder, but actually Longmont surpassed Boulder with more registered voters in early 2023. So it goes Longmont, Boulder, unincorporated Boulder County, Lafayette, and so on and so forth. And all of these statistics can be found on our website as well. But we'll go ahead and jump to the next slide. We have wonderful turnout in Boulder County, especially good turnout in midterms and presidential years. And like everywhere, our turnout does dip in these smaller, more local elections. So we appreciate you being on and hope that you, have the time and within the next week and couple days to make sure people know that there is a local election and that they get their ballot in. So here are just some general high-level turnout statistics that, again, can be found on our website, bouldercountyvotes.gov. And generally speaking, Colorado has some of the highest turnout in the country, which we do credit to our accessible voting model. We have things like automatic voter registration, which when you go to the DMV to get your driver's license, you are automatically registered to vote. You are automatically registered as unaffiliated, which I do think contributes some to that large block of unaffiliated voters. We also have same-day voter registration, so you can register and vote the day of the election. So just a really great election model that prioritizes accessibility, which I think does help contribute to our high turnout. And the next slide is our election calendar. We have completed some important pre-election activities already with our some of the activities that we do, and we'll talk about this later, is our pre-voting system test, which verifies that the election is programmed correctly. We have already mailed ballots, and we will continue to mail ballots through Monday. Vote centers open next week. And then we have some fun events next week as well with National Vote Early Day. We have 4 events planned throughout the county, so please stop by to say hello and drop off your ballot. We'll also be doing ballot processing tours throughout the next week and a couple days. So we invite you to actually come see some of this for yourself in action. And then of course, Election Day is November 4th, but there are still activities after that. We are still receiving ballots into the next week from military and overseas voters, as well as voters who have dropped their ballots off in another county, or for ballots who might have had some sort of issue, voters who might have had some sort of issue with their ballot who needs to take action in order to have their vote count. Most common reason for that is a signature discrepancy. And then we'll do a risk limiting audit, which we'll talk about later, and then we will have our post-election canvass board meeting where we actually certify the results. So to talk a little bit about our election model, we refer to ourselves as an all-option state, which is even better than being a mail-in ballot state, because here in Colorado, every active registered voter does get a ballot in the mail. But on top of that, voters can go in person if that's what they would like to do. They can go to any vote center in Boulder County to vote. We don't have a precinct-based polling model. And in fact, in Colorado, you can go to any vote center in the entire state to vote. But if you do that and you don't vote in your home county, you will only be voting on statewide topics. We also have Spanish language ballots in person at vote centers in Boulder County, and several other counties do as well. And as mentioned earlier, we do have same-day voter registration. So there's no reason to miss an election when you can register and vote same day. We wanted to talk a little bit about election security. So again, we have multiple mechanisms, procedures, and laws in place that really do help shore up election security without sacrificing access. So again, we have same-day voter registration. We have paper ballots, which is really important because if anything were ever to come into question, we can go back to the actual source and verify that everything is accurate. And we retain those paper ballots as election records for 25 months. We also have camera surveillance on election operations, including our ballot processing center and our drop boxes. We have chain of custody requirements, so we know where ballots are throughout the process. Bipartisan oversight on everything that we do in critical election areas. So Republicans and Democrats working together to make decisions on different election activities. And in our Colorado election model, signature verification is the way that identity is verified. So we have bipartisan teams making decisions on your signature to ensure that it is you turning in that ballot and voting. We also have a statewide risk limiting audit, which is a post-election audit. And that is where we have bipartisan teams actually pull the paper ballots that voters voted on. And what they do is they actually compare that to a report that the voting system has that says this is how the voting system interpreted your ballot at the time of scanning. So we're comparing a report from the voting system that says this is how I read this ballot to the actual paper ballot. And every county in Colorado that uses the voting system is required to do a statewide risk limiting audit. And we're really proud of this. We're the first state in the country to do it. And we are so grateful that and excited to see other states really pick up risk limiting audits across the country. We have a lot of partnerships that help us conduct elections in a secure manner. We're part of the Colorado County Clerks Association, which is a professional organization of every county in the state that works together to talk about best practices. We also do tabletop exercises together in contingency scenarios alongside the Secretary of State's office. And we have a great partnership with local law enforcement, both the DA's office and our sheriff's office, to, again, tabletop talk about emerging threats, talk about what if scenarios, and we're very, very grateful that they take election security so seriously, as well as not just keeping our people safe, but also if there ever, is to be something called into question, we know that they will take it seriously. So we wanted to talk a little bit and pivot away from the security side, just to talk about the journey of a ballot and what the steps are of ballot processing. So at a high level, we, excuse me, do have our ballots printed at a print vendor. And those print vendors and our office coordinate together to ensure that there is strict oversight from when we send them the data to actually print the ballots, to proofing those ballots, testing those ballots to make sure that they're compatible and they work well with our voting system. Those ballots are put on trucks, locked on trucks, locked on pallets to actually be shipped to the Denver post office for shipping. And then we work closely with USPS to monitor the delivery success by zip code. So if there's ever a zip code that seems to be lagging behind, we could follow up on that. So that's high level, the journey of a ballot. And we will make a plug here because returning your ballot early does help your local elections office process ballots over a longer period of time. And there are so many options to actually return your ballot once you get it. So 24-hour ballot drop boxes are our most popular form. They are under 24-hour video surveillance. They're collected by bipartisan teams who go out and collect your ballot. You can drop it off at a vote center. We have drive-by drop-off locations, and that's where you can actually hand your ballot to a person if that's what you would like to do. You can return by mail. Monday is the deadline to return your ballot by mail, or just come vote in person. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into the mail ballot life cycle. And again, we have tours starting as early as next week if you would like to come see this process for yourself. So the first step in the ballot processing life cycle is that we receive your ballots from USPS or a vote center or a 24-hour ballot drop box. And what we do, and you can see this on the left-hand side of the screen, is that we immediately begin preparing them to go through our sorting machine. And so when they're getting sorted through the sorting machine, when that's on the right, that piece of equipment is doing a couple of different things. The first thing that it's doing is getting an image of your signature. And that's the image that the bipartisan election judges are using to verify that it's you who actually cast that ballot. And so they are looking at the signature and they are comparing it to previous signatures that we have on file for you. The other thing that this machine is doing is it's just doing different types of sorting. So this machine will sort based on judges thought these signatures matched, or judges did not think these signatures matched, and so we need to hold them down for to make sure that we can get confirmation that that voter turned in that ballot before moving it forward for processing. We also do sorting based on city. So if we're ever in a recount scenario and we only have to recount, say, City of Boulder ballots, all those ballots are together. So just does a lot of different types of sorting, and it aids us in signature verification. Which brings us to signature verification. So again, this is the part where your identity is verified. In Boulder County, 100% of ballot envelopes are reviewed by a human. And so we hire election judges and train them according to Secretary of State signature verification guidelines. And we've also had our training materials reviewed by law enforcement handwriting experts to ensure that it's in line with emerging best practices and review procedures. So they are reviewing their signatures. If they make a match, great, the ballot will then be moved forward for processing. And if they cannot make a match, then that ballot is held on the first floor of our ballot processing center. It's held back, and we send the voter a notification that our judges were not immediately able to match their signature on their envelope to previous signatures on file. So what it does is it puts the voter in a cure status. And so what that means is that the voter needs to take some sort of action to have their vote count. So we will notify them to let them know they need to respond to let us know it was them. We do make that process very easy. They can respond to our letter. They can text it information to us, including a copy of their ID, affirming that that was their ballot. So that is that process. But if the voter's signature was verified, that's great. It's moved forward for processing. We assign them vote credit in the statewide voter registration database, and it's transported for further processing. So we'll go to that slide. So at the next stage in the process, we open the envelope and prepare to extract the ballot from the envelope. And this is where identity is, this is where anonymity is preserved. So our equipment will actually slice open the top of the envelope, and then there will be folks that actually remove the ballot from its envelope while keeping voter information face down, so that they cannot tie a ballot in the way a person voted to a envelope. And then from there, the ballots are separated from their envelope and flattened. So as you can imagine, those ballots have been stuffed in an envelope for a little bit. Those creases from the folds need to be flattened. So we actually have people flatten those envelopes, or flatten the ballots so they can be run through our scanning equipment. From there, the ballots are scanned and the votes are captured. And so they are scanned in batches. And as the ballots are scanned, they are imprinted with a ID number, and we use that for our risk limiting audit later. And again, this is after it has been extracted from its envelope, so there's no way at this point to tie a ballot to a voter. In our system, we have what's called an air-gapped system, which means our voting system is not connected to the internet. It's under 24-hour video surveillance, and everyone that works in this operation, not just in the voting system side, is background checked, and there's multi-factor used throughout the process as well. So after that, we don't run any sort of report until election night. So essentially we have the data on a server, but no one is running reports until election night. And then that's when we start generating results, and we tell the voting system, start pulling together a report so that we put into our online website so the public can actually see the results of the contest. And so how that process works is we download a report from the voting system onto a physical, secure, and clean USB thumb drive, and we walk that over to a computer that is connected to the internet, and we upload the results that way. So to take a step back, we wanted to talk a little bit about how we validate the election. So there's two critical tests that are open to the public, and we invite everyone to come and see this process for yourself. The first one is called the Logic and Accuracy Test, and that's a test that we conducted earlier this month, and that's where we have bipartisan teams of judges who actually hand mark paper ballots, and they can vote however they want, and then what they do is they tally on a physical hand tally sheet how they voted those ballots. What they then do is we run those ballots through the scanning equipment, and we tell the voting system to run a report based on the data. And then what we do is we compare that report to those physical tally sheets. And if they match, we pass the test, and it confirms that the voting system is programmed accurately. And we've always passed this test, but it is a required test that we have to do to demonstrate that the voting system is programmed correctly for the election. So that's before the election, and then after the election is when we conduct the risk limiting audit, and we are required to do this before we certify the election. And again, this is a test that validates election outcomes, and it compares the physical ballots that voters voted to what the scanner read and counted. And it is a proportion of the ballots. It is not every ballot. It is enough ballots to verify that the election outcome is correct. And this is something that we complete again with local party chairs and bipartisan teams of judges. Every county in the state, again, that operates a voting system is required to do this, to again verify those paper ballots against reports from the voting system. So we talked about this a little bit, but to highlight a few things from signature verification that we didn't talk about, or things that folks may not think about, is that our election judges are looking for ways to match your signature. And so what we tell people is always sign your ballot how you normally sign things, because those are the signatures that we also have on file for you. So if you are a voter who has voted a lot, we have a lot of ballot envelopes to compare your signature to. If you are a voter that has not voted a lot, we have fewer signatures to compare your ballot envelope to. So we do encourage people to sign things how they normally sign things. We also let people know that, again, our folks have been trained using different rigorous sets of guidelines, and you may think that you don't ever sign something the same, but we always tell people you'd be surprised. You always have this certain way you dot your I's or a certain loop that you make when you sign your name, and our judges are especially trained to look out for those types of things. And sometimes your signature will be looked at by more people if there's not immediate certainty. Okay, so again, as mentioned in the beginning of this presentation, we wanted to just go through some hot topics, FAQs, and we're happy to dive into any of these at the end of the presentation if that would be helpful. But drop boxes, there's been a lot in the media about drop boxes and are they secure? They aren't secure, why or why not? They are secure. They, again, are designed to be, they are under 24-hour video surveillance during elections. Bipartisan teams of folks actually go out and collect those ballots, and they go straight back to our ballot processing center. Chain of custody is monitored using our ballot box tracking system, and that's a system that electronically records chain of custody. So who went out to collect the ballots, once they collected the ballots and once they're back on site. And they're also designed to be tamper-proof. Okay, voter registration. So our voter registration records and list clean? The answer is yes. We use multiple sources to compare, and we use those sources to clean up our voter rolls. And so there are different databases that we use, including the Colorado Department of Health and Environment for things like death records, CDPHE for those involved in the criminal justice system, and we use we use the post office database as well. So there's several databases that we essentially compare our list against. And we will add that the criteria for registering to vote is the same for voting. We have residency requirements, citizenship requirements, felony confinement status, and all voter registration applicants requires an affirmation of qualifications. So our voter registration records are clean. We also participate in a program called ERIC, which is a program that we compare our voter registration records and actual voters against other states to find duplicates. Ballot harvesting is another thing that we've been asked about in recent years. So signature verification is what we point to as why ballot harvesting is not an issue in Colorado or is not a widespread issue anywhere. And when people talk about ballot harvesting, this is actually a practice of turning in ballots for other people is not illegal. And in fact, in Colorado, you can turn in up to 10 ballots per elector per election. And so this is something that, again, is not happening in Colorado for several reasons. Again, we have signature verification. So we do in Boulder County look at every single ballot envelope signature and compare it to previous ways that you've signed your signature. Once your identity is verified, or if it's not verified, we send out a ballot tracks notification letting you know, hey, your vote is going to be moved forward, or we had an issue confirming your identity. So that would be a trigger for folks to call our office if they did not turn in their ballot, but they're getting these notifications. We have not received any sort of complaints from the public about that, and we know that voters would be calling us if we had told them that we got their ballot and they never sent it in. Again, this is going back to our voter registration slide. We do routine checks, driver's license registration, death records, postal records, Department of Correction, and we are a member state of ERIC. And that is an important program to ensuring that we are aware if there's any duplicates that need to be managed or investigations that need to be triggered. And ERIC is another program that unfortunately has been a victim of mis and disinformation. We've had several, well, maybe a couple of states pull out since 2020, which is unfortunate because it is a tool to help keep our voter list as clean as possible. We would like to highlight that we do not mail ballots to inactive voters. If we get a ballot returned to us by USPS, we will not keep mailing ballots to you and you will become an inactive voter. Couple FAQs or talking points that we like to highlight, and you can share these with your friends and family. We know that a lot of people come to this because they want to be good ambassadors for elections, which we appreciate that. You can always highlight that these elections are not overseen by one person or even just our full-time staff. They're overseen by hundreds of election judges and election workers, all from different backgrounds, all from different party affiliations, coming together to make these decisions. Everything's on camera on 24/7, and election officials, we do not care how you vote. We want the process to be seamless for voters. We just want people to vote, and we want to run our operation with accessibility, transparency, and security throughout everything that we do. So we know that we wanted to highlight a few things about physical and cybersecurity. So one of the things, again, that we've talked about earlier is our law enforcement partnerships and tabletop exercises. Other things that we do is we look at, our physical security and our technical security to look at access points and our data and making sure we know who has access to what and limiting access to everything that we can. We have badge access throughout all of our building. So you have to have a badge to get into areas of the voting or the election operations. There's areas where I can't even get in, such as the scan room. And we have logs for all those as well. Two-factor authentication. And again, we do multiple tabletops in our own office and then also with our partners as well. So with mis and disinformation, we know that this continues to be a challenge, and we appreciate again that folks are on this call that want to be an ambassador for election information. And so what we try to do in our role is to provide accurate and very transparent, detailed information on the elections process. That's why we run these webinars. It's why we have our ballot processing tours, and we had over 600 people come through in 2024, which I think is a really big deal, and we hope more people continue to come to those. We believe that this moment deserves deep transparency, and we try to meet that moment by opening up our operation and becoming very available to people as well. And we try very, very hard to uphold a standard of all questions are welcome and not alienating anyone. And we encourage everyone to uphold that standard as well, that there are folks with genuine questions, and we want to make sure that they feel comfortable coming into our space and asking those questions. So the role that we encourage you all to take on is to ensure that you're doing things like you're doing now, being on these presentations, following us and other sources of nonpartisan election information. And if you see something that seems wrong or that makes you feel a little bit inflamed, that's always an invitation and a trigger to dig in and ask more questions. And you can always report it to our office, and we're happy to dig into it as well. We also like to encourage you to tell family and friends in other states that they should get in touch with their local election office to maybe get a tour, find out if there's events going on so they can see the process for themselves as well. Last, we wanted to touch on a few federal activities and the sale of Dominion to Liberty Vote. So there is some federal legislation that is currently on hold. The SAVE and the PROVE Act, our state association has taken a position on the SAVE Act, and we have sent a letter voicing that opposition. And then the PROVE Act is a newer bill that's introduced in the House, and there's no movement on it currently. The SAVE Act is something that would radically change the way that voter eligibility and voter registration is conducted by requiring proof of citizenship, physical proof, showing up in office to provide that proof, and would unnecessarily harm voters without actually changing any security that we already have. One thing that we wanted to talk about is Dominion voting systems. Some of you might have heard that Liberty Vote recently acquired Dominion voting systems. I think there's been maybe some concern around what this means. So in the media, I've seen everything from a far right conservative has bought Dominion voting to a Republican election official has brought it, and at this point, we remain confident in our voting system. I was lucky enough to hop on the phone with the new CEO of Dominion, now Liberty Vote, and we asked him lots of questions. There was some rhetoric in the original announcement about this acquisition that was concerning, but I do feel confident in his intentions with Liberty Vote. I know our system is going to be secure because everything that we've been saying for years now is still accurate. We are in control of our voting system. We test our voting system. If you wanted to do something nefarious to the voting system, it would take multiple bad actors working together and breaking multiple laws to do something bad and nefarious to the voting system. So we have seen some concern about that, and we want to assure people that right now, we in Boulder County and many election officials in the state do not have concerns, and we'll of course monitor it. And if there's ever anything we need to adjust or change, we will. But right now, no big changes or concerns about that. And that's all we have. So happy to take questions. I want to highlight that you can still update your voter registration. If you haven't gotten your ballot yet, govotecolorado.gov will mail you a ballot, but we need to have that done by Monday, and then come to a ballot processing tour, and here's all of our socials. So with that, we'll just pause for questions.
Great, thank you, Molly. As we wait to see if anyone, go ahead. If you do have a question that we haven't addressed through everything, go ahead and please drop it in. There was one question that came in. Thank you for those that put in a couple of questions or what they're looking to learn today. I apologize if this didn't cover any candidate information that you were looking for. We, as the official election office, don't have candidate information, but we do have a page on our website that has at least all the links in one place for you. So that is, if you go to our website, bouldercountyvotes.gov, under the ballot, what's on my ballot page, there are links. And then the other question that came in, someone asked, I think they had turned in their ballot pretty early and said they only got one of the 2 ballot tracks messages. And to that, I want to get you an answer, which is, if you're on this call, if you turn your ballot in really early, we don't actually start the signature verification process till closer to the election. So we actually just started that process yesterday, or I believe yesterday afternoon. So you probably either, if you haven't gotten that message yet, you'll probably either get it today or tomorrow. So that person had received their first ballot tracks message that we'd received their ballot, but they hadn't gotten the one that said it had been verified and was being counted. So those are 2 different messages. Sometimes if depending on how quickly we're moving, you only get the counted message, but oftentimes you'll get both. You'll get the received message, and then potentially a couple hours later or even a day later, you'll get the counted message. And if you turn your ballot in very early, like right away that first week or so, it might take a full week until we start verifying signatures. All right, so far I have not had anyone drop in questions. We'll give it maybe another 30 seconds or so. And if not, you can always send follow-up questions to the email that you received back to me. I sent the link today, and if it's something I can't answer directly, I can get an answer for you. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.